Friends, I'm taking a break from the normal content that I do on this channel to give you an update about my brother. Many of you were asking on Instagram, on YouTube. As some of you know, in 2021, in October, my brother had a severe car accident. He was crossing the street and got hit by a car. My brother was flying through the air and dropped down to the pavement head first. How do I know this? Because there was CCTV footage available. And I'm gonna show it to you right now. If you cannot see this stuff, it is highly graphic. Skip this part that you're about to watch right now. Warning, it's coming up now.
Schon wieder noch etwas errungen, ein weiterer Schritt.
When it's good and I can breathe a little, and my path is winding in your light, I hear your sweet voice say to me, you're my child and I set you free. I remember all you've brought me through.
I told him when he was in the ICU, I told him, brother, when you come back from rehab, you have to promise me that you let me take care of your strength, that we will build back your strength even stronger than before. You have to promise me this, because before you said you don't have time, but this time, no excuses. You have to let me train you. And he agreed. And that makes me even more happy to see him training with us now every Friday. And he's developing this passion for physical culture as well. There were a legion of guardian angels in that area who were taking immediate care of my brother. Many people ran down, were able to give first aid. So what happened is the following. His hip was totally crushed. His intestines were damaged. His spine was damaged. His brain was damaged. It looked like he wasn't gonna make it. Sometime later, the orthopedic surgeon showed my sister an image of his hip, and she said it was so completely shattered that you couldn't even make out that this was a hip. So this is proof to me that God exists, and I know as well that we live in a privileged country in Switzerland where we have access to the brightest minds in the medical field. He spent, I think it was almost a month on the ICU, intensive care unit, and then he was slowly stabilizing. And throughout that time, I was taking calls every morning. So every morning I got a call from the doctor, and let me tell you, sometimes it was disheartening. I remember one specific call. The doctor was like, listen, it looks really problematic. There's a certain situation that we cannot resolve, and I don't know, but it looks like it's coming to an end. It was something like this. I'm rephrasing. And I was, you have to imagine, that was 6 a.m. in the morning. I get this call because they were just doing a big surgery. So this guy calls me and I'm like, what? Oh my God. So I have to inform my family, but I still have to work. And wow, this was so crazy. I remember Funk Roberts, my brother Funk Roberts, he's right here in front of me because I had a podcast session with him. And he was like, brother, man, now you gotta wear your hero cape. It is what it is, man. You gotta stay strong for your family and then make sure that you take some downtime too once everything is done. There's so many stories, but this one particular story, I remember I was calling the ICU unit, and the nurse, I was telling her how my brother's doing, and I don't know why I asked that question, but there was a particular, the system, the radar or this unit was showing particular vital signs of my brother. And one of the vital signs was the inflammation percentage. I don't know the word in English right now, but just how much inflammation is my brother experiencing right now. And I remember she was telling me, well, listen, the unit goes up to 500 and your brother's not even on the 500. It's the inflammation levels is so high that he's above the radar. I was like, what? And then she told me, you have to imagine when you are really, really sick, you know, COVID sick, or just like one of the worst flus that you ever have, then this number would go up to 20 or 25. And I was like, okay, and my brother's above 500. She was like, yes. Another particular story that I want to share that just came to my mind was when the doc called me and said, listen, the intestines of your brother are not working, and it's been 5 or 6 days, and it seems like they're dead, but they don't know why. There's no mechanical problem. You have to imagine, they had to open up my brother a couple of times and see what's going on. Even recently, 5 or 6 months ago, he had to have another surgery because of his intestines. And it said it's not moving. Even though they gave the most intense medication where normally intestines would react, but nothing's happening. So they were feeding him through the tube, but the intestines weren't doing a lot with it. That's why he lost so much weight in the ICU process. And then all of a sudden, through prayer, I believe, the intestines started working again. And I remember when I visited him, I stopped by and the smell was so bad. And I was like, oh yes, how awesome. And me and my siblings, we were joking. We were like, isn't it funny that you are rejoicing about the fact that your brother just took a dump? But that was a serious situation, because they said if the intestines are not working, we are facing a serious problem. Yeah, and then he woke up. My other sister was with him when he woke up, and when he woke up, it was pandemonium. I think he thought he died, and then he came back from the dead, and he had some stories about it. He was like, I saw my friend, and he tell me, listen, it's not your time, brother. You gotta go back down. Something like this. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. Yeah, I remember I was talking to him all the while he was in the ICU. Afterwards, he told me I was able to hear you guys. I was able to hear my kids. I was able to hear your voices. He couldn't make out what we were saying, but he heard us. Even the nurses at the ICU said, you have to talk to your brother, soothe him, touch him, because he feels it, even though he's in a coma. So after this, the rehabilitation process began. After he got out of the ICU, he's walking upright. He has no damage to the brain. He has a little bit problem with reading and with eyesight. I told him back then that he was supposed to go on a walk outside, because that's a good thing. Because he was asking me, what can I do to lose weight? And I don't want to train. I don't find time to train, but I have to do something. I was like, you know what? Go for a walk. Download an audiobook, put it on Audible, and then go on a walk and listen to it. And he said, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And he's still a little bit confused today, because he's like, I was doing something for my health, and then this happened. I had to tell myself that this is not my mistake, or this is not my fault, because I told him to go on a walk. Because all these thoughts come in, and when stuff like this happens, your mind goes into panic mode. But again, and that's something that I want to mention because I think it's so valuable, I had to carry the burden for my family, and being mentally and physically strong enough is one of the reasons why I was able to do this, and that's thanks to my training, adopting the idea of physical culture with kettlebells. So I believe if you're able to go through an intense training session, for example with kettlebells, the kettlebell tells you that you're supposed to stay calm under pressure. And that's what I have learned. I cannot manage this all the time, but I think I have come a long way. And I remember he had a clamp on his hips. They had to stitch it and sew it, and I don't know how to do it, fuse it together in a way that the clamp was necessary to keep the whole hip in place. If he would have gotten up, or if this clamp wouldn't have existed, the hip would have just fallen apart. It would have just broken into pieces, or just because it's not able to handle any weight back then when he was in the ICU. You think nobody comes back from this alive. And I am aware of the fact that some people experience, or some people's family members or loved ones experience accidents like this, and their loved ones don't make it back. That makes me even more grateful, and I appreciate the fact even more that God once more decided to to protect my family. There were many situations in my life and in my family's history where God stepped in or His hand was with us, because it's just inexplicable. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for those prayers. I think probably at that moment so many prayers come up that it has gotten God's attention. It was like, okay, hey, something's going on. I mean, he was already aware of it and was sending angels down, and so the angels were like fueled by the power of prayer. And last but not least, I want to say thank you to the medical professionals who saved my brother's life. Yes, I truly believe that God was involved in this whole situation and that He was guiding the hands of these professionals who were working overtime to make sure that we still have our brother today. And every time we said thank you, they said, no, you don't have to thank me. This is my job. But here I am saying once again to the team of the Kantonsspital St.Gallen, thank you so much for saving my brother's life.
And my path is winding in your light. I hear your sweet voice say to me, you're my child and I've set you free. I remember all you've brought me through. 'Cause you're so good, you're so good. You were so